Ladies and gentlemen, the crypto shakeout continues into, of course, the next day. We have been now selling off and essentially correcting for about roughly 48 hours now. And we actually can see that crypto has turned red also on the weekly. Now, we are starting to see a lot of people panicking a little bit around this, but I want you guys to understand that if you are new to this space, or maybe this is your first cycle, it's okay to be concerned. It's okay to be worried. I know that there's a common thing in crypto that says, don't let your emotions get attached to your investments. But the thing is that money is money, right? No matter the amount of money that we're putting into something, there's always going to be that slight amount of emotions tied to it. But I want you guys to realize that if this is your first cycle, by the time that you are in the next cycle of crypto, you will have absolutely zero emotions tied to this game. And it's because you realize and you actually understand what happens in the middle of the cycle, which is there is pullbacks along the way, there's corrections along the way. It's all to build liquidity. It's all to shake out weak hands as well. And I know that that kind of sounds horrible to say because again, a lot of people do get shaken out simply because of their emotions, or maybe they're scared, they're panicking a bit. But I want you guys to realize that the shakeout typically happens right before the largest move in the cycle. This happened back in 2020 as well, right? Right into December, into January. What we saw was a major wipeout of, altcoins. XRP is a perfect example of this as well. But, it was right around that November, December 2020 timeframe. And everyone kind of gave up on altcoins. And then January of 2021 came, and that's when altcoins just took off. That's also where we get the Dogecoin, mania from and all that kind of stuff, because around that time is exactly when Dogecoin also was going crazy. But right now, we are in the sea of red. Bitcoin around 117K did drop about 1.7% today. In the last week, it's down about almost 3%. Ethereum is actually green on the daily and also on the weekly, but XRP down 3.7%, down about 13.9% on the weekly. We also do see Stellar down there, down about 3.2%, down about 14.8% on the weekly. SUI 3.7, 9.4. Then also HBAR 4.2% and then 15.9% on the weekly. So again, these are not shallow pullbacks, but they're nothing to be, extremely concerned about. For an example, some altcoins right now on the yearly are still down 50+%. So, compared to where some of these altcoins are actually at, especially like XRP, for an example, XRP is still up 400+% on the yearly. XLM up 306%, SUI up 371%, HBAR also up 256+%. So, in terms of like comparing where we are at now or any of these types of moves that are happening in like the last week or so, I really think that we are in a good place right now, especially on a lot of these altcoins. So I don't think that we need to be concerned all that much, but let's actually go over a few things. Let's actually address what's happening. When it comes to crypto, everyone always wants to know, why are we having this sell-off? Like, what's actually going on? And really, the main thing about all of this is just simply resetting the sentiment, right? Like, I think that this has now completely reset the market, and it could last for, a couple more days. It could even lead into next week, which is totally fine. But, the main thing here is don't get shaken out before that last major impulsive wave on the altcoin market, because that's going to be the largest wave for altcoins. But we can actually see, and let me make sure that this is up to date. The market cap of crypto, 3.83 trillion. Fear and greed down to about 66. The altcoin season index sitting at about 37 out of 100. So we're actually now starting to see altcoins taking the backseat a bit. And we're starting to see that, dominance switch over to Ethereum and Bitcoin, just like we were talking about for the last couple of days. The main thing here is to watch Ethereum, because I do think that we're in that phase 2. I think that we're in the beginning of the phase 2 for Ethereum, which is where we start to really kind of watch what Ethereum does next. And we also take a quick look at like Ethereum dominance, or like even Bitcoin plus, Ethereum dominance, which we have been looking at. But in terms of XRP, XLM, SUI, and all of them, this is what the last 7 days looks like. So the last 7 days on XRP, we're down about 13.73%. Nothing too crazy, to be honest with you guys. Because as I've mentioned in even my live stream from last night, when we think about altcoins going back to even the middle of the bull run, 30 to 50% moves to the downside are pretty much normal. And I know that that sounds, scary to some people because again, traditional finance, we don't have moves like that unless like everything is crashing, but it's all about volatility in crypto, right? Like we are invested into crypto because of the crazy moves to the upside, but we can't get those crazy moves to the upside if we don't also participate when we have those crazy moves to the downside as well. But in terms of XRP, XLM is also in a very similar state. Last 7 days, about almost 15% down. SUI also the same. Last 7 days, about 10% down. And then, of course, HBAR also in the last 7 days down about almost 16%. And we did lose the 24-cent level, which I'll talk about here in a second. But, yeah, this is not easy for, average investors or somebody that is not experienced in crypto for like two cycles or more. Because, again, once you get past that first cycle, these moves become normal. You don't really look at it as like, oh, wow, look at like this is a crazy drop to the downside. Like what's going on? Is this the end of the cycle? Is this, us going into the bear cycle? No, it's, I understand that a lot of people are kind of concerned, but this is just one shakeout that we have to kind of get through. But this is what the charts actually look like. This is the XRP chart. Again, no major change here at all. This is the daily. We're probably going to chop here, like I said, and this is what we actually want to see. We want to see us build a floor around these levels up here, and it's right around the demand back here from the highs in January of this year, but it's also right around the highs from March as well. So we want to actually build a floor here, get that nice impulsive move to the upside, and then finally break out and continue to the upside. So this could take a little bit of time. I said that August will most likely be a little bit boring because of how exciting July has been. I mean, we started July back here when XRP was like around the mid $2 region, and we pumped all the way to about like $3.70. So we can't say that it wasn't exciting in terms of, July, but, going forward, I do think that August, we might just consolidate a little bit around these highs before we get that big impulse move, into like September, because again, September is when I am expecting the Fed to actually cut rates. September, I do think is going to be a pretty big month. And I actually think that, it's going to be very similar back here, right? Like even into July back in 2024, it was still pretty exciting. We had those moves from like sub 40 cents all the way up to about like 60 some cents, almost 70 cents into the end of July. Then August was pretty boring into, of course, September. September had a nice little move to the upside. And then October into November was pretty bearish until, of course, like after the elections when everything went crazy. But I don't think that we have to consolidate for 2 months or anything like that on these altcoin charts. I think that we probably just, chop a little bit for like a week or two. And then, going forward, I think that we probably get that nice impulsive wave. But even XLM very similar. We're in the demand zone here. I would love for us to actually maintain the support zones that we formed back here before that, cascade to the downside. So like right around 39 cents would be a very good area for me to really kind of be watching XLM for any signs of life. Or if we do really kind of wick down to those highs where we do have the liquidity wicks, right around like 37.5 cents is also fine too, as long as we start to kind of build a floor around that, area and not cascade like we did back here, to the downside. So definitely watching, XLM here as well, because we're getting close to those zones. And then of course with HBAR, HBAR did lose 24 cents. Mainly the thing about 24 cents was just maintaining these highs. But I would like for us to actually maintain a higher low here. So I don't want to see us lose this wick from July 15th. Now, is it extremely important for us to actually maintain that? Not exactly. And honestly, on the daily, we do have a fair value gap down here below that level. And this is like 20, almost 1 cent, so like 22.5 cents. So it wouldn't surprise me or shock me at all if we did start to kind of just break down to this level, build a floor, and then continue to the upside. So again, just kind of get through this. I know that it sucks to see negative price action, but it is just all a part of the game. SUI also getting close to my level where we were kind of looking for that retest of the trend line before we continue to the upside. We just knew that we were going to get a sell-off around higher time frame resistance on all of these charts. So this is not like shocking or surprising at all. And it's also at a time, by the way, where we continue to see ETF inflows at almost all-time highs. We just witnessed the M2 supply break to a new all-time high of $22 trillion. S&P, right, in terms of stocks still trading at all-time highs. The dollar is still extremely weak, which, by the way, if we're thinking about the M2 supply continuing to expand to the upside, the dollar is just going to continue to drop and be very weak. Nobody wants to actually hold dollars right now, so what are they going to be pushing their money into? They're going to be looking at stocks and crypto, which is why, stocks are continuing to surge. And of course, why crypto is still as high as it is. But again, this is why I keep saying that right now, yeah, we're seeing a shakeout. We're seeing a shakeout because Bitcoin dominance is starting to gain momentum. Bitcoin and Ethereum dominance also gaining momentum. If we actually look at this thing on the 3-week, we can see that big wick to the downside just continuing to get eaten up because we're starting to pump to the upside. And while dominance is rising and we see any significant move on like Bitcoin or Ethereum, yeah, it hurts altcoins. Altcoins will drop. And right now, Bitcoin, this is what Bitcoin looks like. We're starting to see a sell-off. We're starting to see, a major, drop to the downside. And this is what we wanted to see anyways. We were talking about it for, a week or so now. And when we go to the Bitcoin chart, right, this is what the Bitcoin chart looks like. Or sorry, this is not it's the crypto one. So this is what the Bitcoin chart looks like. And I did say multiple times over the last couple of days is that we were getting close to this resistance level of like 120K. We kept rejecting off of it. The zone down here is what I'm watching, 112K to like 100 and almost 16K being retested. And this is very similar to even the altcoins, right? With the altcoin charts, we want to see a floor formed. The same goes with Bitcoin. We want to see a floor formed around this range. That way we could actually get that nice impulsive move back to the upside. But on the daily, we're 21 hours away from seeing if this is going to get exaggerated. And what would that look like? Well, it would be a daily close below 117.2K, the first close below that level since we actually broke out back in the middle of July. And this would be losing daily support on this chart, which would cause that major impulsive wave down, which will definitely hurt altcoins, which is why we should have some stable coins on the sidelines for buying opportunities. Because I do think that we will most likely hold 112K. We'll have to watch and wait to see if this does get lost. But I do think that we hold this, and I think that this is just one shakeout event before the largest impulsive wave in the market actually hits, especially when it comes to like what's happening with altcoins right now and Ethereum. I think the show is starting to kind of switch from Bitcoin to Ethereum. And then, of course, we talk about altcoins. We're talking about phase 2 being the Ethereum side. Phase 3 and phase 4 is altcoins. So just kind of get through this. I know that it's not, easy, especially for those that are not experienced with crypto all that much, but we've seen this many times over, and this is really nothing, if I'm being honest. And I know that that kind of sounds scary as well, because this is not really that crazy of a pullback at all. But just get through this and, just try to be patient, right? Don't act impulsively. Just kind of, just do nothing. Honestly, if I'm just being honest with all of you, just if you're new to this space, if you're not that experienced, just simply do nothing. Because when you start to swap over, cryptocurrencies, and you start to convert this and convert that, or, you want to, sell into something and you buy back lower and try to do this, that's when we start to see some pretty big issues happen. But I do think that this is going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. But just get through this, and I'm telling you guys, after, you're going to see why we call it a shakeout event. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.